Hello friends, this is Alia from Team Learn Do Become, and thanks for joining us today on Learn Do Become Radio, episode 225. This is a fun guest podcast with me and my husband, where we talk about some of the upcoming things that are happening in our life and how we're not stressed out about them because we have our step system in place and we know that we can use our projects and routines and next actions to tackle everything that is coming our way in the next few months. So thanks so much for joining, and at Learn to Become, we help people who are drowning in the details of life to create simple systems so they can do what matters most. And I love this tagline that my parents have created for Learn to Become because I think it just perfectly explains how we can go about life when we don't have a mountain of to-do lists and a mountain of things weighing on us, that when we can truly trust the system that we've created, it can help us to have this peaceful, exciting life that we are really encouraged by. And I hope that today's podcast is helpful. We don't go into all of the specifics about resources for creating a projects list, creating your routines list. Those will all be on our show notes page. I'll link some of the helpful podcasts and resources that I'm personally a big fan of. And you can find all of those resources at learndobecome.com/episode 225. So again, I won't go into specifics in this podcast about how to set up a system and where to go next, but all of those resources are on the show notes page. So without further ado, here is the podcast. Hi everyone, this is Alia, and I'm here with my husband Josh today.
Hi everybody.
And we're excited to take you on a little trip into our lives, a little insight into how we're using STEP right now as a couple getting ready to move several states across the United States, as Josh is getting ready to start medical school, and as we're working on a lot of projects right now in our life. So I'm really grateful that Josh is here joining me. I kind of roped him into this and said, hey, wouldn't it be so fun if we did a podcast? And he's so kind to join me. So Josh, do you want to kind of let us know what was life like before STEP? Because it wasn't, I wouldn't say dramatically different. You were still really organized, on top of things, but there was just some differences in the way that your system was or wasn't set up, with the different STEP principles. So what was it like as you were starting college, beginning your adult life? What would you say was different from what you are experiencing now?
So I think definitely kind of what Aaliyah pointed out is I didn't really have a solid system I could depend on. I was organized and I was able to get the things done that I needed to, but I feel like I had a lot more stress as I had to remember the different upcoming events I had and the different homework assignments I had and the different projects I needed to be working on, and I didn't have them written down anywhere or a way to really tackle them. And there was a lot of procrastination that went on and a lot of late nights right before the deadlines getting things all set and ready to go. So
yeah, and that's not to say that you didn't do a great job in school. Like, you were still able to do really well on tests and you were able to move things forward with work and getting everything sorted out. But there was just a lot that was taking up space in your brain.
Yep.
And I think what we have talked about a lot is now that we've been married for a few years, and as we've been establishing our own STEP system together, we've really realized that nothing is in our brains anymore. Or sometimes one of us will say to the other, hey, remind me to do this when we're at the store, or remind me to do this while we're with family. And we'll look at each other and say, wait, no, I am not your remember person, because we have calendar reminders, we have our projects list. We know that we don't have to depend on each other's brains to actually get stuff done. So that's just a little insight into kind of the before and after. And I feel like I'm kind of the STEP nerd here in our relationship, because my parents have been teaching me this since I was pretty much in elementary and middle school. So it's been something that's more ingrained within me, but it's been really fun to see how we can put our own spin on it, because the way that I like to process things isn't always the same way that you like to do things.
It's very different.
It's very different. But at the core, we are able to realize that having a calendar, having a current projects list, having a next actions list, that is truly what helps us stay very low stress with all that we have going on. So do you want to let people know like what's going on in our lives in the next few months? You can be a little vague on some of the specific details, but what's going on between now when we're recording this and February 2024 into the summertime?
So I am currently finishing up my bachelor's degree. After that, we're going to take a family trip before medical school. Then we're going to be moving to medical school area and starting medical school. And
the reason we haven't set a location is because we actually don't know our solid location. We have somewhere that he's committed to go to school, but there's still a lot of schools, even this late in the application game, that haven't said anything. So there's a chance that we end up in a totally different place than we're anticipating right now. And that's kind of hard for us.
Yeah, we want to know where we're going, but we don't yet.
Yeah, I think that's natural. We want to know, all right, do we have this? Do we have an apartment figured out? Do we have a place we're moving to? Where are we sending our stuff? But that's kind of up in the air right now because that's just the nature of getting into a medical school. So, okay, we are preparing for the move, and then what else? Starting medical school. That's kind of the next big thing. Yeah, so you did say that. So those are kind of our big blocks right now that we're looking at. And if we just looked at that from a lens of, okay, we need to make a to-do list and get started, where do you think we'd be at right now?
We would have 5 or 6 pages of little boxes we needed to check off.
Yes, 100%. I am just so glad that we don't have 5 or 6 pages of things to check off, because I'm sure everyone listening can relate to having that never-ending to-do list where you start thinking, okay, I need to do all these things inside the house. I need to organize the pantry. I need to do this. I need to take this item to someone in my neighborhood, and I need to return this to the store, and the list just keeps going. And when we add things like a cross-country move or a big new life change, whether it's a new job or a new school or family things that come up, it can get really overwhelming. So here's a little way that we have broken this down together. We started, when would you say, to start planning our move? December?
Yeah.
So we're not going to be moving until end of April to get out of our apartment, but we started in actually maybe September. We started reaching out to our landlord and starting to figure out the details for moving out, to make sure we had someone in here to help take over the last month of our contract. We started really breaking down the moving process of decluttering the whole house and saying that is a project in itself, to declutter the whole house before we move.
Yep.
Because we don't want to take a bunch of stuff with us that we could either maybe sell on Facebook Marketplace or donate to someone in our community or donate to our local kind of our donation center. And as we broke these down into projects, we were able to establish a timeline. And we actually, it's kind of funny, we added a calendar invite for each other on like January, some random night in January, where we said, we're going to plan out the projects. And we just listed out everything in our heads and said, this is just dumping out all of the things that are on our brains relating to a big move. And how did that feel? Was that like overboard doing it that early? Was it helpful to do it that early? What do you think?
I think it was really helpful to get that out of our minds and give us a little peace in that area, that we knew everything we needed to be working on was somewhere safe, and we could plan out all the different aspects of each project.
I love that, because there are some things that are really a lot more time sensitive than others, because things like eventually packing up our apartment, that's something we don't necessarily need to do right this second because we had a few months to do it. But we had to schedule some shipping and storage containers because we need all of our stuff to be stored somewhere for a month, actually 2 months, before we even get to our final destination, and don't even know where our final destination is yet because it's still kind of up in the air. Yeah. So that was something we wanted to do early, where we recognized here are all of our projects relating to the move, from something as simple as just talking to our landlord and getting some details figured out to figuring out the details for a shipping container and moving all that, or not really shipping container, but small pod containers for moving stuff. But that's something we are able to finish this week. We recognized this is not the peak season for scheduling a moving container. Most people move, whether it's summertime or somewhere that's not February. Most people are probably not moving in the winter time here in the United States, but that's at least from what we've seen.
Yeah.
But it was great to get some quotes on the moving containers early, and the people said, well, yeah, you're actually several months out, so the price isn't as high as it's going to be right up when you start moving. So it's great to save a little money to get that knocked out. And that was broken up into a lot of small next actions. We realized that we had to call and get a bunch of quotes from several companies. And then what did we do after that? We
compared them.
Yeah, we compared them in a spreadsheet, and then we talked about the options. We wrote out our different budgets for the different expenses that we're going to be having over the next few months. And that was kind of a lot to realize. We have a lot of things coming up, and we really need to be wise about the ways that we're spending our money, the ways that we're saving, how we're working, stuff like that. And sure, those conversations can sometimes be uncomfortable, but I think we both would rather have a couple of those uncomfortable, stretching, like, maybe this isn't super fun, I don't want to plan this right now conversations, but it's really helpful.
Yep.
Okay. Anything you want to add there? Or?
Well, of course, money-wise, we don't really want to have to worry about saving for all the expenses in the future. We just want to go out to eat or go do some fun activities, but it's super important, and I think it's really helpful that we were able to have that uncomfy moment and look ahead and realize that we might need to cut back on a few things to be able to be ready for our upcoming projects.
Yeah, and that's not to say that we're going out to eat every day, but sometimes when we're weighing the convenience factor of, we have a lot of restaurants locally, that'd be awesome to go grab dinner, when we recognize we might have to put some extra prep into getting meals ready and buying a few ingredients here and there. And that's really helped us to weigh those priorities. So we were not finance and money gurus by any means, but it's really helped us to recognize areas where we could cut back a little bit and really create a new project to use all of the ingredients and the things that we have in our house, because
we're not going to move them. They're not going to sit in storage for months.
We didn't think it would make sense for a lot of our non-perishable items to sit in a hot container for 2 months. So we're trying to use as much as we can right now. But as these things happen, as maybe you can recognize this as you're listening, we're kind of piling a lot on to this story of moving. But each of these items that we're sharing is a project in itself, where we can recognize that we want to use all of the food in our pantry, in our freezer, in our fridge. And of course, we could give some to neighbors or donate it to a local food pantry. But when we realize we're trying to save money in certain areas to have enough for not going into debt for moving and doing the best we can with the resources we have, we've realized that we can totally use the food in our house right now. We have lots of options. We can go buy a few things produce-wise, but we have the bulk of the stuff already here. It just takes some calendaring and some really solid meal prep time, which we've actually started adding to our calendar. Sometimes on Sundays, we'll batch prep a lot of things that we have, either like canned goods or things that we want to use up. And it's been fun to get creative with our meals. But I think don't be afraid to turn something as simple sounding as that into a project. That's where I think a lot of us get stuck on implementing STEP into our lives, because we think, oh yeah, I just need to use all the stuff in my pantry. But we don't realize that's a whole project. And if you've never done a lot of cooking at home before, maybe if eating out at restaurants is the norm, then that might take a lot of extra work to really find recipes you like, to learn a couple cooking techniques, maybe invest in a crock pot so it can do some of the work for you, stuff like that. But I think that's what we've loved doing together, is realizing we have a lot of projects going on, but we know how to tackle them with our next actions. Okay, the next section that we wanted to talk about was creating memories before we leave. And this is adding a lot of projects to our list. And when I say that we're adding projects to our list, we're not adding them to our current projects list, right?
Yes.
The current projects list, we recommend having no more than 7 or 8 current projects for the month at any given time. And of those 7 to 8 projects, they span the 3 categories of our lives that we mentioned here at Learn to Become. And you can adapt these to your own life, but the categories are for me, for family, and beyond. And beyond can include work things, community things, stuff like that. But when we are talking about our own projects list, we're trying not to have more than 7 or 8 projects total on these lists. And we're recognizing that we are adding a lot of projects right now to our next in line and someday lists, but we don't need to get stressed about that because we know we're going to pull from them in the future.
Yep.
So do you want to speak on how having a next in line or someday projects list has been helpful, or anything you've noticed after implementing that?
It's super nice because they're there and you know what you're going to be working on next. And I feel like a lot of the time in my life, if I haven't gone through and put my projects down, I will run over somewhere in the house and start cleaning up the kitchen, but then I'll remember, oh, I need to go make the bed, so I'll run over and I'll start making the bed, and then I need to fold the laundry, so then I'll run over and start folding the laundry, and nothing really gets done completely. I start things and then they don't get finished, but then when I have those projects planned out, I know what I'm focusing on right now, and then I also know what's coming up next, and I know that I have everything ready and set for those upcoming projects to know I can just start it when I need to.
I love that. And what I love about Josh is that he is a go-getter and he loves to work on things and he loves to be so helpful. But yeah, sometimes you do get excited to go work on something and then you pause working on that because another thing comes to mind. And at the end of the day, you've worked on a lot of things, but it might not have been part of your projects or part of some of the things on your next actions list. And I think that we've had a lot of good conversations about how there is a time and a place for these different routine items that we're excited to work on, but we also have to prioritize our projects and the next actions that relate to those projects so that we can keep chipping away at them. And as we've built our next actions list, which has usually 1 or 2 next actions for each of our current projects, that helps us to move things along. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I think we can always keep doing better, especially trying to find a way to collaborate on our projects that we're working on for family stuff. But anyways, going back to creating memories before we leave, this has been something that's helped us feel really good about moving farther away from family. We've both really never lived super far from family. Right now we live about 15 minutes and an hour and a half from each of our families respectively. And it's been really nice to have family so close. All of our siblings are local. We have Sunday dinners pretty frequently with everyone. And it's been great to have such a close, united, connected family. But that's going to kind of change a little bit once we're, I think, 18 hours away, something like that.
A lot of it.
Yeah, anywhere from 18 to 25 hours away driving.
Yep.
And we recognize that we really need to make this time count, that we're here living so close to our families. And we've actually made it a project to create these memories. And do you want to talk about a couple of the things that we've done, whether it's with grandparents or parents in our own community? What have we done to make that happen?
Yeah, of course. So some of the things we've been working on is scanning the family photos from our grandparents and from our parents. We've also been scheduling some time to have our family and our friends over for dinners or go to a local community event together, and just taking that time and making sure that we don't have any regrets when we leave.
That's the biggest thing that we've noticed is we don't want to have regrets about, oh, we should have done this or we could have done that. We really want to make sure that we're, of course, doing what we need to do to work and do school and prep for the things that are, on the calendar coming up. But we also want to make sure that we're planning time for fun, planning time for connection with those that we love. And like Josh mentioned, we have, during our weekly reviews, when we do some calendaring together, we take a look at our calendar and say, oh, look at that. We actually have some open time on Tuesday. Let's text your sister and her fiance and see if they want to come over for dinner and dessert. Or let's text our grandparents and see if they want a visit during this pocket of time that we have available. And just by doing that simple practice of a weekly review and calendaring together, we're able to make time for family and not say, oh, my week's too busy and everything just caught up with me and I didn't have enough time. But it's taking those simple steps to sit down and look at our calendar and really plan things out. And maybe our calendars might seem too structured to some people, and that's okay. But it really helps us to be intentional about our time and to make sure that we're seeing the people and the places that mean a lot to us before they're not right in our backyard or right down the street anymore.
Yeah.
And like Josh mentioned, we're scanning photos for grandparents and family. And of course, there's a lot of different ways to go about that. But the fact that we are so close right now and we have these photos at our ready, we can use them. We'd love to have copies of those before we're farther away and be able to share those with others. Anyways, those are just kind of some of the things that we've been doing. But it's just implementing that routine of a weekly review, looking at our calendar, seeing what's going on in the community, what's going on a few cities away that might be fun to attend, looking at the major holidays or breaks from school or any other times that we have off or windows of time, and thinking about what matters most to us and what are we excited to do. And just having that vision of looking forward in the future and not being stuck in the present saying, I'm just so stressed out, I'm so bogged down by all my tasks and to-dos and routines, I just can't get on top of them. Because we trust our step system and nothing's in our minds, nothing's cluttering our spaces, and we're feeling really calm and prepared, it totally helps us to really create this life that we're excited about. And that's not to say we don't have any stresses or struggles,
We've got plenty of those.
We're human too. But I think that we're approaching them with a mindset of, we've got this. Maybe something unexpected comes up in our apartment or an extended family, and that becomes a very high priority project and has to knock a few things off of our list for the time being.
Yeah.
But I think it's knowing that we can come back to those things, and we don't need to be sad when life gets crazy or when hard things happen, that we can renegotiate with ourselves and recognize that it's okay to take a step back and simplify. But at the end of the day, we can trust that everything has a place in our command centrals, in our step systems, and we've got this. So anything else you want to add? Any encouraging words of wisdom for the Learn to Become community?
You guys all have this. It might take a second to get things set up, and always takes a second to get used to some new habits, but it is definitely worth it to put in that time and that effort.
Exactly. And we've had a lot of new community members joining us, especially those joining our STEP programs, and a big welcome to everyone here that's brand new. But I have seen in our Facebook groups a lot of people saying, wow, this is a lot. This is brand new. I don't know if I'm actually ready for this. And they've received some incredible, encouraging words of people saying, that's what I thought at first too, but then I stuck with it. I really just started with the basics, made my simple projects list, got my calendar ready. I cleared a space, even just the smallest space, on a bookshelf or in a cupboard or on a corner of my desk for my command central. And I know that just taking these small steps to create your system is going to be so worth it in the end. And as Josh said, be patient with yourself, that you got this. But I hope that this podcast is encouraging to show that even when you've got a lot going on, when you have big life changes, you can look at those changes and those upcoming events through the lens of current projects or next in line projects, routines, one-time tasks, goals, and stuff on and on. Thanks again for joining us today, and it's always so fun to share what's going on, share how we're using our STEP systems here on the podcast, and we really appreciate you tuning in. Again, all of the show notes and recommended links and resources can be found at learndobecome.com/episode 225. And I also wanted to give a little shout out for a couple upcoming things that are happening. First, we have a special Arise bonus class that is coming up on February 29th. We thought it's kind of fun that this year is a leap year and we have that extra day of the year. So we're going to be holding a fun bonus class for all of our Arise membership members and our Step Mastery members, and anyone's welcome to join either of those. But we have more details coming soon. It's called Preserving Photos and Memories with Projects and Routines. We know that this is a very much requested topic from our Learn to Become community, that we all have a lot of memories and important things. Maybe it's family items, friend items, our own personal things that we want to know, how do I save these? How do I create a good system for them so that they can make an impact in the lives of the people that I love most? And that bonus class will be on February 29th at 10 a.m. Pacific, and full details will be on the show notes page as well as in our free community Facebook page. All of that's linked on our show notes. And I also wanted to give a little shout out for our Step for Students program. My husband and I have both been students for a lot of years. I actually graduated a year ago, and he's graduating in about 3 months. And we're super excited for that. And then he's going to begin the long journey of medical school. But we have our Step for Students program full of principles and things that have helped us as we've gone through middle school, high school, and college. And we're excited to share that with those that are interested. And you can find all of that on our information page at learndobecome.com/S4S. So the number 4. Step for Students, S, number 4S. So learndobecome.com/S4S has all the information on the Step for Students program in case you'd like to check that out for the students in your life and help share some of these same principles with them so that they can have a great start to either their high school or middle school or even their college career, but have that confidence and that foundation to develop simple systems so that they can not feel stressed in school and they can really feel excited and passionate about moving forward in the projects that they've been wanting to complete. So thanks again for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful day.